So I've got some more ideas to share with you for customizing figures, and once again, because they're just ideas, you don't have to implement them. They're just here to help you expand on your ideas. So I ordered this figure from Amazon a while back, and this is the way it came in, completely gray. Personally, I love these gray figures because I can change the color at any given point to what I want to have. I don't have to double the work on top of another color. Now, a lot of you may not like these, but unfortunately, these are hard to get, and, well, they're a little bit more expensive now. But I ended up using this figure a while back to turn it into the Dark Knight Returns in the blue version. I am revisiting my own work and changing it to something different. I've added a new sculpt, actually two sculpts, and I've reworked the cape to look a little bit neater. Everything else stays the same. And just the two sculpts make all the difference in the presentation of now this Golden Age Batman. So let's take a look and go back through a few steps to see how this figure is actually produced so that you can produce your own figure and get your own Golden Age Batman. Let's get started. So let's start with the basics. We're going to skip over a lot of unnecessary basic information. You already know how to take these apart. But the important thing is to seal off anything that you don't want to paint. In this case, I've already masked off and painted the blue areas that I wanted in blue. And I used a tester's blue. You can use Vallejo blue. You can use Citadel blue. Whatever blue you want. Just make sure it's an acrylic paint and seal your work. And if you are going to disassemble it to the point of removing the pins, you just have to remember to apply heat again to those joints, not to the pin, to reassemble it. And that's in case you want to have the joints painted. In this case, because it's going to be a gray outfit, I'm not going to worry about painting the joints. I'm just going to use shading with an airbrush at an angle. You can do it with a dry brush if you wanted to, just to show the shadow in those wrinkles. And if you're working with these ball joints, yeah, they're a little bit more difficult, so you will have to be a bit more careful as how you paint them. And you will have to let them dry thoroughly before reinstalling them. Otherwise, you're going to rub off that paint. If you want to add that flex joint or that mobility, go ahead. On this figure, unfortunately, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You're actually going to have to cut part of that peg, actually not the peg, the actual piece that holds in the trunks, so you can have that flexibility. I'm not into dynamic poses, so to me it doesn't make a difference. I'm going to leave it pretty much like it is because I'm only going to do the shading, and I'm going to change it into a different Batman. Well, a different era Batman. Still, I'm reusing what I've got here to change out the figure, and I just wanted to show you where I started and now where I'm going with this actual figure. This is obviously the original head. We're not going to be using that. These are the trunks that I had to paint, and I added some more yellow to the actual pouches and more detail so they can actually stand out. That belt, by the way, is glued in really, really well. If you try to pry it apart, you may tear the trunks. So I'll give you a brief rundown on the cape, as I have already worked on this figure before. And I'm reusing the cape. I'm going to clean it up so it's a little bit neater, especially around the scallops at the bottom. It is a cotton fiber. I picked it up at Walmart. It's only a couple bucks. Here in this image, you can see that I went ahead and pleated my scallops. They're not sewn in yet. Only the top has that double stick glued tape that I ironed in, and that's for the main wire. Now, originally on this one, I had individual wires to each one of those scallops. This time I'm using 3 wires, one at the top and 2 at the sides that are going to encompass 2 of those scallops. But it's not going to be a wire that's cut individually. It's going to be one single wire hooking in 2 scallops. That way it has more rigidity and it has better posability. Now the center here, where the hole is for the neck, I ended up having to clean it up a little bit neater, and I could still probably do that even more on my current figure. But this is an old video. The new video you'll see toward the end. This is what your figure should look like once you have it painted and you've got it cut the right size. Here, it's still nice and neat because it's an older video. Over time, it's frayed along the bottom edge. And I went in and added a sealant just at the edge and recut it so that it's nice and clean once again. So let's talk about the custom emblem. And if you watched my video prior to this on using a Cricut cutter, if you haven't, you should go back and take a look. It shows you how to use one of those to cut these small emblems or logos. That cutter cuts so clean and so small that it's incredibly difficult to do this if you painted it. Now, that decal that you're looking at here, and I'm using tweezers to peel it from there, it's 2 decals that are embedded one on top of the other. The black is a separate cut, the yellow is a separate cut. Now together, using a transfer tape, I'll be able to place it where I need it on the chest. It is a permanent vinyl. Once it's on, it's there to stay. If I wanted to remove it, I'd have to use heat, and I'll probably end up damaging the paint underneath. Now, in case you want to use those water decals, you can. However, you have to remember that the water decals are also translucent. And if you use the wrong color underneath that decal, it can affect the actual vibrance of the decal. So it can actually change the color of it. That's why I like the vinyl ones, because they're a solid, opaque color. And because they are cut on that Cricut cutter, the lines are nice and clean. And I don't have to use water. I don't have to wait for it to dry. I don't have to use a fixative. It's all ready to go once I place it. You just have to make sure you make it centered where you want it. Or make sure it's level, in other words, as well. Once you've got it where you want it to be placed, you can press it down with the wax paper backing that you've removed, and it will be there as long as you don't remove it. Now, in case you're wondering, on this older figure, I did wire it into the actual body. However, on the new figure toward the end clip video, you'll see the cape looks different, and that's because I only glued it down this time. I removed the wires that were holding it into the actual body, and I used the fabric tack glue to adhere it to the body. And it dries fairly quickly since it's actually fabric to plastic, just a couple of hours, and it dries to a hard consistency. And because it's a transparent glue, if there's anything that's seeping through, it will dry clear. But if you get it anywhere on the fabric, you will have some problems because it's going to be visible no matter what color the fabric. So make sure your hands are clean before attaching the cape to the body. Keep in mind that this is already a figure that I worked on. I am reusing these items to create a different figure. I'm adding 2 new sculpts to this figure, but I'm reusing the cape, and it looks so different. In any case, I'll leave you with some video of the finished product. If there's any questions, leave it in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, don't forget to keep customizing and enjoying those figures. I'll be out for a couple of weeks because I've got a new job starting out, but I will be uploading later on to YouTube. We'll see you next time.